Hello, it's good to have you with us at this hour. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with the headlines. Seoul's foreign and defense ministers are in Washington to meet with their U.S. counterparts. The focal point of the talks, ensuring the strongest possible measures against North Korea's threats. President Park Geunhye monitors the progress at Gumi National Industrial Complex and looks in on a traditional market and folk village in the southern city as well, vowing greater investment through reform. Seoul prosecutors indict the Lotte Group founder, his two sons, on top of 14 incumbent and former executives. The decision comes at the end of a 4-month investigation into the family-owned conglomerate. The foreign and defense ministers of South Korea and the U.S. will meet in Washington over the next 2 days. Our Connie Kim starts us off with the allies' high-level talks on strengthening joint deterrence measures against North Korea.
South Korea's foreign and defense ministers have kicked off their official visit to Washington by paying tribute at the Korean War Veterans Memorial. During their visit to the U.S., Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se and Defense Minister Han Min-gu will seek response measures against North Korea's nuclear threats. A so-called 2+2 meeting will be held on Wednesday with the two South Korean ministers and their U.S. counterparts, Secretary of State John Kerry and Defense Secretary Ashton Carter. Topping the agenda are ways to bring out a strong UN Security Council resolution and formulate additional ways for Seoul and Washington to further pressure Pyongyang.
We'll focus on putting our heads together to ensure the sanctions on North Korea are the strongest they can be.
Minister Yoon and Secretary Kerry are set to hold a joint press conference following their talks. On the following day, the two defense chiefs are set to discuss Washington's extended deterrence over South Korea, under which the U.S. will mobilize all of its military assets to defend the country in a time of crisis. Having U.S. strategic assets deployed on the Korean peninsula at all times will reportedly be discussed during the defense talks. Carter hinted at such plans in the latest issue of Foreign Affairs on Tuesday. He said Washington is continuing to deploy some of its most advanced capabilities, including F-22 and F-35 stealth fighter jets and maritime patrol aircraft under the second phase of the Obama administration's rebalance to Asia. In response, North Korea ramped up its rhetoric, saying Seoul and the presidential office of Cheongwade will be burned to the ground if there are signs of preemptive strikes from South Korea and the U.S. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Also, the deputy foreign ministers of South Korea and China discussed the rising tensions regarding illegal fishing by Chinese boats in South Korean waters. Their meeting in Seoul on Wednesday comes on the heels of a recent sinking of a Korean Coast Guard boat by a Chinese fishing vessel. Seoul's deputy foreign minister for political affairs Kim Young-jin and his Chinese counterpart Gong Shan-yu exchanged views on the case and talked about how to deal with the problem from here on. The two also addressed the current situation on the Korean peninsula. The Chinese diplomat, who is in Korea for a 3-day visit, will also meet with Korea's Vice Foreign Minister Im Sung-nam on Thursday to further address issues of mutual concern. President Park Geunhye continues her efforts to see how her policies are working out in the field with a visit to her political stronghold of Gyeongsangbukdo province, where she visited the Gumi National Industrial Complex. There, the president led her encouragement to an ongoing initiative to transform smart factories and support manufacturing innovation. She also highlighted the necessity of leading the fourth industrial revolution and fostering new industries, particularly new materials, while vowing to attract more foreign investment through deregulation and reform. She also dropped by a traditional market in downtown Gumi to speak with the public and wrapped up her day with a visit to a folk village in Yeongju. During her visit to the village, she underscored the need for local governments to develop tourism programs that highlight regional features in order to boost their economies. Economy policymakers held a meeting today to discuss ways to find new growth engines. The meeting comes as the Korean economy loses steam, especially with Samsung Electronics and Hyundai Motors in crisis. Kim Hye-sung has this report.
Two of the main pillars of Korea's economy are in crisis: Samsung Electronics and Hyundai Motor, which together account for 20% of the nation's GDP. Samsung last week announced it's essentially killing off its Galaxy Note 7 smartphone due to persistent reports it's a fire risk. Losses related to the recall are expected to cost the company over $6 billion. As for Hyundai Motor, the company sold around 5.6 million cars in the first 9 months of this year, representing a 1.8% on-year drop. And the company remains mired in labor strife. According to Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, Korea's exports in September dropped 6% compared to the same month last year, with automobile and smartphone exports alone falling by $1.5 billion. Because of the impact Samsung and Hyundai Motor could have on other sectors of the Korean economy, their crises were a main topic discussed at Wednesday's meeting of economy-related ministers. Korea's Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Yoo Il-ho said he will support small and mid-sized companies hurt by the troubles at Samsung and Hyundai, diversify Korea's industry portfolio, and push for structural reforms. As technology changes and the global economy slows down, Korean exports have been falling, meaning it could be more important than ever for the country to find new growth engines. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
Samsung's latest Note 7 debacle has been in the headlines for many weeks now. The shocking defect that brought the flagship model down has raised some concerns about a number of fundamental issues. Shin Se-min breaks down what Samsung must do to pick up the pieces and bounce right back up.
It was only on store shelves for 54 days. Samsung's Galaxy Note 7, after taking on the market with impressive new features, quickly became a blemish on the world's #1 smartphone maker. The company's unending rivalry with Apple, combined with Chinese manufacturers churning out cheaper handsets, has turned into a neck-and-neck race in an already oversaturated market. Samsung's Galaxy Note 7 debacle has raised concerns over a number of issues. Does the world's #1 smartphone maker have what it takes to develop top-quality devices full to the brim with all the latest features? No doubt it does, says a professor of computer engineering.
If you look at the hardware, Samsung Electronics is in the lead. No other smartphone maker in the world has ever tried to put together features like an iris recognition camera, waterproof ability, combined with better storage and better batteries.
While he suggests more time spent thoroughly testing its safety aspects, some market watchers say they're confident Samsung will bounce back. Elliott Management, an activist hedge fund with shares in Samsung, is sure the company remains a leading global player in tech and has a, quote, world-class brand. Looking ahead, some say Samsung could do more to appeal to its customers.
At the moment, it needs to take a softer approach in the sense that I think we haven't really seen them really apologizing much to consumers or compensating more above and beyond, just beyond the cost of the Galaxy Note 7. So I think that that's something that's lacking at the moment, and I think that to actually address this issue, they actually need to show that softer and compassionate side of them, to show that they are really sorry to consumers that this has happened and to assure them that this will not happen again.
She says that Samsung might also want to shift focus from its technical abilities to improving product durability. And though the fire safety fiasco has been one of Samsung's most trying predicaments to date, eyes are on the world's #1 handset maker to make a comeback with its next offering. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
The probe into retail giant Lotte Group has wrapped up, with prosecutors deciding to press ahead with indictments for the group's founders and 2 sons. That makes 5 members of the owner family being indicted. Kim Mi-ji has more on the Chaebol Group's fall from grace.
It's a dark cloud cast over Korea's 5th largest conglomerate, Lotte Group. Seoul prosecutors indicted but did not detain the group's chairman Shin Dong-bin, his elder brother Dong-ju, and their father and the group's founder Shin Gyok-ho, bringing an end to the 4-month-long investigation. The founder's common-law wife Seo Mi-kyung and his daughter Shin Young-ja had previously been indicted on charges of tax evasion. Prosecutors also indicted 14 sitting and former Lotte executives. Prosecutors said Wednesday they found evidence of both embezzlement and tax evasion, and that all responsible members of the owner family will be tried in court. The total amount of cash involved in the cases is estimated at around $330 million. Lotte chairman Shin Dong-bin is suspected of orchestrating shady deals among the group's business units and giving stipends to the owner family just for being listed as board members of the group's units. The group's founder, Chilgok, allegedly evaded hundreds of millions of dollars in gift taxes by handing over shares under a borrowed name to a firm jointly owned by his common-law wife and his daughter. The eldest son, Dongju, the former vice president of Lotte Holdings, is suspected of receiving an illicit allowance. Prosecutors launched the probe into the group back in June, raiding some 10 business units and summoning about 500 Lotte executives and staff, either as suspects or witnesses. However, critics pointed out that the investigation failed to uncover details related to the group's alleged slush funds. After the probe results were announced, Lotte Group apologized for causing concern, saying it will cooperate with the legal proceedings and vowed to get the firm back on track. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
South Korea has helped developing countries break out of poverty and improve their living standards over the years with the Saemaul Undong, a homegrown rural reform initiative that's been tested and proven by Korea. Additional steps to support global development were highlighted at an annual conference in Pyeongchang. Oh Soo-young was there.
Korea has bolstered its commitment to helping rural communities around the world end poverty and create sustainable ways of living with its homegrown rural development model called Saemaul Undong. Interior Minister Hong Yoon-sik has taken that commitment one step further by forging bilateral agreements with his counterparts from East Timor and Kyrgyzstan during a 4-day Saemaul leadership conference in Pyeongchang. The Saemaul Undong movement transformed Korea's impoverished war-torn landscape into an economic powerhouse starting in the 1970s, improving not only agriculture and infrastructure, but also jobs, education and governance, in addition to promoting gender equality. Minister Hong remarked on the progress of Saemaul projects in East Timor, and East Timor's Justice Minister Dionisio Suarez expressed a desire to further expand pilot villages and human resources training.
After studying Saemaul Undong principles, which is basically based on changing mindset, self-reliance, and self-initiative, and also willingness to take it on from there to get out of poverty, our government think it is very important to embrace these values.
Korea had signed an MOU with Kyrgyzstan the previous day on the expansion of Saemaul projects and training in the country.
The Saemaul Undong has been the force behind major developments in several villages, especially in terms of building infrastructure. The MOU signed today marks a new chapter in expanding Saemaul-based development.
To further help countries localize the Rural Reform Initiative, Korea's Interior Minister outlined several courses of action.
We're developing a Saemaul index to help countries localize and customize the initiative to their needs and stages of development, in addition to producing a comprehensive educational curriculum. Microfinancing for low-income villagers is also essential, so we will include that to share the Saemaul financial cooperative experience.
Korea will also support the Saemaul Undong Global League, a network of more than 30 countries that launched on Wednesday to strengthen cooperation on further spreading and localizing the unique developmental initiative. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, Pyeongchang.
A close aide to the Japanese Prime Minister visited the controversial Yasukuni Shrine on Wednesday, a site that glorifies Japan's imperialism. According to Japan's Kyodo News, Seiichi Eto, who is also a legislator, visited the shrine during the annual Autumn Festival. The Yasukuni Shrine honors Japan's war dead, including 14 Class A war criminals. Other officials to visit Wednesday included the first cabinet members to go during this year's event. Those were the country's communication minister and the minister who handles issues related to Japan's aging society. Visits earlier this week by other lawmakers drew a prompt and stern rebuke from Korea's foreign ministry, which urged them to show sincere remorse for Japan's past wrongdoing. Recent polls show Hillary Clinton leading in most battleground states with electoral votes well over the majority. In contrast, her Republican rival Donald Trump is fixated on a theory that the presidential election is rigged to his disadvantage. Oh Jung-hee gives us the updates on the race for the White House.
With less than 3 weeks to go until the U.S. election, the Washington Post sees Democrat Hillary Clinton holding a decisive advantage over her Republican rival Donald Trump. According to a poll the Post conducted with SurveyMonkey, the Democratic nominee Clinton has a lead of at least 4 percentage points in 9 out of 15 battleground states. On Election Day, that would give her 304 electoral votes, well over the 270 majority needed to win on November 8th. Under that scenario, Trump would get just 138 electoral votes. The Republican candidate has seen his poll numbers slide after the first presidential debate and the accusations of sexual assault that followed. He's recently taken to claiming the presidential election will be absolutely rigged for Hillary Clinton, which on Tuesday drew a sharp rebuke from President Barack Obama. Speaking at the White House with Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi, he advised Trump to, quote, stop whining and instead make his case to get votes. And he added that it's unprecedented for a presidential candidate to try and discredit the election and its process before voting starts. Also unprecedented, he said, is Trump's, quote, continued flattery of Russian President Vladimir Putin. On Monday, Trump said he could see himself meeting with Putin before taking office if he wins the race. 오정희, Arirang News.
And that's all from me at this hour. For our viewers in Korea, we have more domestic news updates coming up next. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for staying with us. I'm Devin Whiting with your in-depth domestic news. In Parliament today, the parties continued to clash over controversies stemming from 2 government-linked foundations said to have raised money improperly. That and allegations made by a former foreign minister in his memoirs that a previous administration wanted to seek North Korea's opinion before voting in the UN. Our political correspondent Park Geunhye reports.
The ruling party called on members of its governing body, the Supreme Council, to help shape the party's stance on several issues, first among them the 2007 government decision to abstain from a UN vote against North Korea. The account was detailed in the memoir of former Foreign Minister Song Min-soon.
This party has been listening to your opinions regarding the memoir. This meeting welcomes your opinions on current issues.
At the meeting Wednesday, council members called for Moon Jae-in, a likely presidential hopeful in 2017, to reveal the facts of the matter. In his book, Song wrote that the Roh Moo-hyun administration sought to consult with North Korea before voting on a 2007 UN resolution condemning the North's human rights violations. Seoul ended up abstaining from the vote. Moon was the chief of staff to the president at the time. However, not all council members agreed. Some, including 5-term lawmaker and former culture minister Chung Byung-guk, called on the presidential office to first clarify the allegations surrounding 2 government-linked foundations. The organizations were allegedly managed by Choi Soon-sil, who is suspected of using her personal ties to President Park Geunhye to raise money for the foundations, some of which she allegedly siphoned off into a paper company she set up for herself. The main opposition Minju Party of Korea also urged the prosecution to investigate the matter, which is referred to locally as Choi Soon-sil Gate.
We see that Choi Soon-sil Gate is going beyond allegations and solidifying. Money donated by conglomerates under pressure went to the K Sports Foundation, which again reportedly went to a paper company of Choi's.
The minor opposition People's Party called on Moon Jae-in to reveal the truth about the 2007 decision.
I've begun to strongly doubt Moon's crisis management capability and the leadership of someone who aspires to be president. We ask Moon to end the controversy by revealing the necessary facts.
The bipartisan strife is expected to peak at the audit of the presidential office this Friday, when the opposition parties are expected to call on the top office to explain the Choi Soon-sil allegations. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Korea's unionized cargo truck drivers today decided to end their strike after walking off the job 10 days ago. The government welcomed the announcement, saying it'll push for institutional improvements that better ensure the safety of truck drivers. They include controlling overloaded vehicles and providing better protection for truckers who use their own cars for business. Meanwhile, the nation's railway workers have entered the 23rd day of their strike, their longest to date. This is further raising safety concerns as relatively inexperienced short-term contract workers are left to fill in. An explosion at a closed-down chemical factory in Gyeongsangbukdo province has killed one person and slightly injured 4 others. A 46-year-old worker identified by his surname Park was taken to hospital but later died from his wounds. According to the local fire department, the blast occurred around 9:20 a.m. at the Star Chemical Factory located in the 3rd cluster of the Gumi National Industrial Complex in Chilgok County. The fire department initially reported that the blast appeared to come from an oxygen tank as workers were taking down a chemical storage facility. But the Korea Gas Safety Corporation later said it found no evidence it was an oxygen or gas tank, but rather the blast came from residual chemicals in the silo they were working on. The resulting fire has been put out and no chemicals leaked into the environment. And those are some of the stories we're following right now. Thanks for watching. More to come at 8 p.m. Korea time. Bye for now.